Okay, we'll try this again.
All
Alex, welcome to another edition of Take It to the House. We are here today to do a couple of things. We're going to wrap up the playoffs, really, because it doesn't seem like the Super Bowl is the playoffs. It seems like that's a different thing. So we're sort of done with the playoffs now in the NFL. We've got a Super Bowl coming up in 2 weeks. Today we're going to do a little bit shortened segments, but we're going to talk about the championship games, talk about the Super Bowl coming up, and then we're going to do a little bit of discussion on parents of teenage athletes and just teenage athletes in general and some of the dynamics that are happening with that. Alex has been a teenage athlete. He's also a coach now and has spent a few years and has some experience under his belt as a basketball coach and just a coach in general, getting to know families and kind of being in that, between stage of being a kid and being a parent. And so his perspective is going to be real valuable. So I'm really looking forward to that. So let's get right into the games from yesterday, Alex. First of all, we had an AFC game that, I think the way I would wrap it up, and I'm not just saying this because I'm bitter, because I'm trying not to be bitter. I was pulling for the Ravens, but honestly, as I'm watching that game as objectively as I know how, I saw the Ravens lose that game more than I saw the Chiefs win the game.
Right.
And credit to the Chiefs. I think Kelsey had a great game. Just being objective, he had 11 catches, well over 100 yards. I thought Mahomes was just solid. Defensively, I thought the Ravens' defense in the second half was tremendous.
Yeah.
But the Ravens' offense moved the ball, and, it's sort of like we keep coming back to this, or I keep coming back to this idea that quarterbacks make the difference. And Lamar Jackson just did not come through. Now, of course, Flowers had a couple of big mistakes that were very costly, but that interception, I watched it about 7 times, and I cannot understand what he saw.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Baker Mayfield Lions interception, if you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because you see man-to-man, and Baker saw the linebacker, wanted to put the seam route over the top of the linebacker, and Baker just underthrew it. Yeah. Lamar underthrew it by 3 yards, plus there were 2 safeties behind it.
Yeah.
So it was triple coverage.
Right.
And it was in the end zone.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like Lamar saw the linebacker, started his throwing motion, and then he saw the 2 safeties, and that's why he underthrew it.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's kind of what was going through his process, and I certainly can't pretend to know, but that was a costly mistake. Obviously, Flowers, gosh, you got a first down on the 1.5 yard line.
Yeah.
But then he stretches the ball, gets it knocked out. Great defensive play by the Chiefs. Same thing happened to the Chiefs almost, really, against the Bills on the pylon.
Yeah.
But, in that situation, it's like, first of all, you've got a first down on the 1 yard line. You don't have to score on that play. Second of all, if you just cover up the ball and dive into the end zone, you're going to score.
Yeah.
And you don't have to reach the ball out right there to try to get the ball over that goal line. And then, of course, the personal foul on that long play before that there's no defense for it. There's really no defense for it. When you're standing over a guy and you spin the ball right on him and you're staring down at him, I mean, I wish I could try to make the case, and I'm sure some Ravens fans are trying to make the case it was a bad call. It was not a bad call.
Yeah.
And there were a few calls that I saw yesterday that were a little bit iffy, but just about every time I tried to, slice thinly the scrutiny of the refs, I thought they did a good job. I thought the calls went the right way. But anyway, enough out of me. Tell me your thoughts on Ravens Chiefs.
Yeah, I thought, like you said, I thought the Ravens moved the ball. Credit to the Chiefs defense, playing timely defense, bend not break. forcing a couple turnovers, which were obviously, a key. And then, like you said, just a couple little penalties here and there to keep the drive alive, the Jadeveon Clowney hit late. And it wasn't super malicious, but he leads with his head, and he hits Mahomes in the head. It's like,
you look at it and you say he could have pulled up.
Right.
Like, it was late enough that you're like, you didn't have to do that.
Yeah, so just little things like that where they just, like, shot themselves in the foot. Like, and you'd think, just, like, all this whole year, like, you've been waiting for this game. And they just looked, they just didn't look ready at times, like, when it came to little things like that. Like you said, the 1 yard line, like you said, just dive with the ball covered. Like, you're long enough, with your length that you can, like, make it in the end zone. So, and then the Lamar pick, like, I know the dude plays his butt off, but, man, like, there's just some big mistakes, like, at crucial times. And it's like, when you're a top 5 player, and there's some throws also in the game, Tony Romo brought this up, like, he's just missing certain throws, like, down the field or out routes. It's like, when you're a top 5 quarterback in a playoff game, trying to get to the Super Bowl, it's just throws you gotta have. And so it's just like, I give Lamar a lot of credit. He's been sensational this year. But, this game, I thought here and there, there's throws that he missed. And it's like, oh. But, I thought, like you said, I didn't think Mahomes was special. But he had a good first half. And then he was just a game manager in the second half, And it's just knowing when to be a game manager and then when to push the envelope. And it's way, Travis Kelce hasn't done anything for the better half of 2 months, and then these last 2 playoff games, he's been a huge difference. So it's pretty amazing to see them kind of come together always at the right time.
Yeah, that's all good thoughts. We're going to keep going more on this, but we're going to take a little break. We'll be right back with Take It to the House. Okay, back with Take It to the House. I'm Drew Robinson here with Alex Deitz. We're talking about the AFC Championship game. First of all, just continuing in talking about Ravens Chiefs. Alex, you mentioned how Lamar, gutsy performance, pulling for the guy. You feel like he's one of those quarterbacks that's like on the cusp of being great.
Yeah, definitely.
But he's just not great. He's good. And there's certain things about Lamar Jackson that are great.
Right.
But as an overall quarterback, to miss those throws and to make that poor decision with that huge interception, it just prevents him from being great. But back to the inaccuracy, I feel like when I was watching Lamar, particularly on the fade routes down the sidelines, there were several, at least 3 or 4 times where he threw the fade route. And, Odell Beckham Jr. is not going to get huge separation. I mean, he's not that much of a barn burner anymore,
right.
I guess. And the DBs I think the DBs were bigger than him, which is a little bit unusual. You think of receivers as being taller guys. But, when you've got a guy that's got leverage, because Odell is a great route runner and he knows how to establish that stack and that leverage toward the outside. You feel like Lamar, and I sort of got this a little bit with Baker Mayfield. I'm just talking about the passes. I'm talking about the pass itself. It just seemed like on that route, and this goes against what I usually say as a high school coach, because I'm always saying medium air outside shoulder.
Right.
They weren't always keeping the ball on the outside shoulder, but it's almost like they needed a little bit more trajectory to kind of drop the ball down, because when you've got these DBs that are just locked, that are but there's leverage, you've got to drop that ball down just a little bit more to give that receiver a chance. And Lamar and Baker too, on a couple of the longer throws, just didn't give receivers a chance because they're throwing that fade ball a little bit too much like a dart and not enough of the dropping it in the bucket. But what else did you notice just about Lamar in the pocket or his performance in general?
I think he's done just, from beginning of his career to now, just I think a better job trying to stay in the pocket, keep his eyes downfield, and use his legs as a last resort. And there's no question he's grown as a passer. Like, he really has. But, I just think there's just timely throws, and even like you said, that ball deep in the end zone, it's just like right there. But it's just you just got to find a way to put it on him in these big moments, and those are the plays that we've seen Mahomes make. Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and all these great quarterbacks. And I think if you want to consider yourself like a top 5, top 3 quarterback in the NFL, which a lot of people say you are, and you're probably going to win the MVP, it's just, you just got to make those throws. Like, that's, I think, a big thing for me. And, credit to the Ravens. They hung in there even after some of the turnovers. And I think they're right there. They're just on the cusp. But, oh, man, feel like this one hurts a little more than some of the others.
Yeah, you feel like this was the Ravens' year to really. In some ways, we'll get to the NFC in a second. The Lions kind of felt like it was their year.
Right.
The Ravens kind of felt like they were the best team in the AFC, but the Lions, I feel like, have a more of an on ramp to continuing.
Right.
The Ravens, they're going to still be good next year,
right.
But they're not new to the party, so to speak.
No.
They've been a playoff team. They've actually won a Super Bowl. It's been a few years, but I just here's the other thing that kind of struck me is, how I talk about Josh Allen takes off and runs too much,
right?
And I felt like that was too one-dimensional for the Bills. I honestly felt like Lamar did not take off enough.
Yeah.
I feel like he is so effective with his feet that, and it almost seems like the Ravens' game plan offensively was, hey, we all know Lamar's a great runner, but we're going to show everybody what a great 5-step, 7-step drop pocket passer he can be. And I'm fine with that. I'm not saying don't drop him back, because he is a pocket passer,
right,
and he does pretty well most of the time. But I just felt like they needed to get him outside. Just play action, bootleg him out a little bit, and just give him a little bit more, variety. I just felt like we were dropping back all the time.
Right.
And he was just sitting in the pocket all the time. And it just makes that pass rush a little bit easier. Because what are you thinking? Obviously, the biggest thing you're thinking as a defense is you've got to rush up the middle. Right? Don't just rush the edges and then cover zero and you leave the middle open.
Right. Step up.
But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed because I just felt like Lamar needed to run more.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think just the Ravens as a whole probably could have ran a little more. And I know when you're playing from behind, I feel you probably feel like you got to drop back. But yeah, it was 17-7 for a while. Like, that's not a game that's out of control where you just have to air it out. And I think they could have probably kept the Chiefs defense a little more honest. But other than that, I think that's really all I got to say. I thought, Chiefs always get hot at the right time, and this is the second time we've seen the Ravens in a, conference championship game, and I guess the last time they were the number 1 seed was the divisional round in 2019, and it's just like, they looked better than they did last time because they looked really flat, but it's just like, wow, like, what do you guys have to do to win a playoff game when it matters? Like, dang, I just kind of felt like...
Yeah. Well, and just to kind of wrap it up, I felt like you could feel the Chiefs established a lead, right?
Right.
The Ravens, like you said, 17-7, third quarter, early second half. Not time to panic yet, but as the defenses started to get tougher, and the Ravens defense kept it tough. They really kept the Chiefs from moving the ball in the second half, but you felt the sense of urgency growing,
right?
And as that kept growing, as you got through the third quarter, and then you started, by the time the fourth quarter started, you felt like, okay, the Ravens are in a little bit of a panic.
Right.
And the Chiefs are feeling extremely confident.
Yeah.
And even though Mahomes wasn't scoring a bunch of points in the second half, you could just tell he was like, all right, let's at least ball control a little bit. Let's get a couple of first downs. It's okay if we punt, but our defense is playing pretty well. But then, even the big plate of flowers and the penalty, it was so huge and so exciting because it was they were so starved for a big play, for something, and then they drive down, the interceptions and so forth. So, you know what, the Chiefs, you felt that whole been there, done that thing with them. You felt the confidence, and you called it when we did the predictions, and we went to a break. You couldn't decide.
Right.
Then you came back and said, I'm not betting against the Chiefs in the playoffs, in the AFC Championship game, and you nailed it. You were right on it. All right, let's take another break. We're going to come back and talk about the NFC Championship. We'll be right back on Take It to the House.